Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Science fiction on this Saturday, and it's one I think you'll enjoy. It's from the pen of Kurt Vonnegut Jr. From 73 years ago, April 22nd, 1950, an episode of Dimension X, report on the Barnhouse-effect. And we thank you for joining us on this Saturday, 22nd day of April, 112th day of the year. We have 253 days remaining until we get to 2024. Congress passed the Coinage Act on this date in 1864, which mandated the inscription "In God We Trust" be placed on all coins minted as U.S. currency. I'm just curious. Have those non-believers, have they ever bothered with this? Any of the atheists that want to send the money here, our address is on our website. The Boston Red Stockings defeated the Philadelphia Athletics 6-5 on this date in 1876. That was the first National League baseball game. At high noon on this date in 1889, thousands rushed to claim land in the land run of 1889. Within hours, the cities of Oklahoma City and Guthrie were founded with populations of at least 10,000. Pravda, the voice of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, began publication in St. Petersburg in 1912. 1930, the UK, Japan, and the U.S. signed the London Naval Treaty, regulating submarine warfare and limiting shipbuilding. 1945, after learning the Soviet forces had taken Eberswald without a fight, Adolf Hitler admitted defeat in his underground bunker and stated that suicide was his only recourse. The first televised atomic bomb test took place on this date at the Nevada test site near Las Vegas in 1952.
18, 19, 20. 21 and there it is, that brilliant flash, that white light that precedes the explosion of the atomic bomb number 17. 40 miles away, a brilliant white flash, almost blinding with those rocket trails coming out of it.
We had a report from the telephone company that fed the picture from Los Angeles to where we brought it, all the way across the country. That reception was perfect all the way through, and we're delighted about it, of course.
That atom bomb test took place on this date in 1952, just 163 miles south-southwest from where I sit right now, in the mountains of northern Nevada in Ely. The Army McCarthy hearings began on this date in 1954.
The average American can do very little insofar as digging communist espionage agents out of our government is concerned. They must depend upon those of us whom they send down here to man the watchtowers of the nation.
ABC and Dumont broadcasting networks gave them wall-to-wall television coverage. The coverage greatly contributed to McCarthy's decline in popularity and his eventual censure by the Senate the following December. Alrighty, on this date in 1964, the World's Fair opening for its first season in New York City, President Johnson spoke at the fair, speaking of peace and unity.
I prophesy peace is not only possible in our generation. I predict that it is coming much earlier. And if I am right, then at the next World's Fair, people will see and America as different from today as we are different from 1939.
The president also spoke about civil rights, not knowing demonstrators were protesting just outside the arena where he was speaking. The first Earth Day celebrated on this date in 1970. At a celebration 20 years later in 1990, Tom Cruise spoke out about the environment.
If we make the environment sick, it's going to make us sick. Our future is our children's future. Our children's children's future. They're crying out. We cannot let them down.
The event on the West Lawn of the Capitol featured other celebrities, including John Denver. The Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, dedicated on this date in 1993. Disney's Animal Kingdom opened at Walt Disney World near Orlando in 1998. In a pre-dawn raid on this date in 2000, federal agents seized 6-year-old Elian Gonzalez from his relative's home in Miami. And in 2008, the Air Force retired the remaining F-117 Nighthawk aircraft that was in service. Among those passing away on this date in history, auto manufacturer Henry Royce, actor Will Geer, Father Hines, Earl Hines, fine jazz pianist, photographer Ansel Adams, actor Albert Salami, President Richard Nixon passing away on this date, Irma Bombeck, the humorist, Army Ranger and football player Pat Tillman passing away on this date, killed in action. Also singer-songwriter Paul Davis, Richie Havens, Here Comes the Sun, and Joni from Happy Days, Aaron Moran. Born on this date in history from Green Acres, Eddie Albert, Aaron Spelling, the TV producer, model Betty Page, actress Charlotte Ray, and the very delightful Glenn Campbell.
How would you like to be remembered?
Just for what I am. I'm Glenn Campbell, and I believe in God, and I believe in other people like the way you want to be treated, and to help others less fortunate. Music is really incredible. It's something it's a gift. And I try to do that. And, wow. I'm thankful.
Such a horrible passing, having your life taken by Alzheimer's the way it was with Glenn Campbell. Glenn Campbell, born on this date in history. Actor Jack Nicholson, 86, the man who sang, Hold Me, Kiss Me, Never Let Me Go. Mel Carter, 84 years old today, and he probably still sings better than I do. Peter Frampton Comes Alive, 73. You remember her from The Last Starfighter and Night of the Comet. Catherine Mary Stewart, 64. From Whose Line Is It Anyway in The Drew Carey Show, Ryan Stiles, 64. Laura Palmer from Twin Peaks, Cheryl Lee, 56. Asia Songbird, Regine Velasquez is 53. From Pineapple Express, Justice League, Aquaman, and Court, Amber Heard, 37. And Machine Gun Kelly, the rapper, is 33 today. Those just a few of the people that celebrate the 22nd day of April as their birthday. And if this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
And from 73 years ago today, April 22nd, 1950, Dimension X and the report on the Barnhouse Effect. That's up next here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on a Saturday on your favorite radio station. Published in the February 11th, 1950 issue of Collier's Weekly, Report on the Barnhouse Effect, the first short story written and published by Kurt Vonnegut. We now hear that story as it was dramatized for Dimension X a few weeks after it was published. April 11th, 1950, 73 years ago, Dimension X on Classic Radio Theater.
Adventures in time and space, told in future tense.
Dimension X, 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 X.
The mind of man is still an unprobed field. Within it lie many mysteries still unsolved. But there are men today, psychologists now experimenting with telepathy, hypnosis, thought transference, who believe that in the future we may discover the existence of a force of the mind, more powerful than any force the world has ever known. We go ahead now in time some 10 years, and in space to the campus of a small eastern college. The hour is late, and in one of the dark college buildings, two men stand in front of a door that bears the name Professor Arthur Barnhouse, Psychology.
Well, here you are, Clinton.
Thank you, Major.
Here are the keys to the professor's desk and files. I guess you inherit everything now. You might as well dictate a full report while everything's still fresh in your mind. I'll wait and see you home.
Oh, no, that isn't necessary. I'll be all right.
You sure? After what's happened tonight, we wouldn't want you to have an accident, too.
Major, after what happened tonight, I have a hunch the whole world is ripe for an accident.
I'm afraid you're right, Clinton. Well, good night.
Good night. Oh, pull yourself together, Buster. Easy does it. August 21st, 1960. Restricted report from George Clinton to the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, the FBI, National Security Board, etc., etc., etc. Subject, the so-called Barnhouse-effect, and Professor Arthur Barnhouse, who discovered it. I first met the professor 2 years ago in the fall of 1958. He was a professor of psychology here at Wilton College, and I was here on an instructor's fellowship in the psych department. They assigned me to be Barnhouse's assistant, and he needed one. He hardly ever remembered to go to a class, and he didn't seem to do anything else either. For 3 months, I watched him sitting at the desk here in his study. He'd either stare at nothing for hours or fall asleep, nodding over his mess of papers. I couldn't understand it, and it was none of my business. But one day, I thought I'd better give him a shake.
What? What?
I said it's 2:15, Professor. Don't you want to go to your 2 o'clock class?
Don't you want to mind your own business?
I beg your pardon.
Sorry, Clinton. Forgive me. I don't know what gets into me. Forget the class. The kids would rather be outdoors anyway.
Okay, Professor. In that case, I'm sorry I woke you up.
It's all right. I just can't seem to get my sleeping done at night. Clinton, what do you know about the international situation?
Well, I'm no political scientist, if that's what you mean. I read the papers when I have time.
Well, that's the way I've always been. Lately, I've had to look into it. I stay up nights looking into it.
Professor, I don't want you to take this personally or anything, but... Well, sir, I wonder if you'd mind if I asked to be transferred.
You mean you'd rather work with somebody else in the department?
Oh, no, sir, it's not that. I think maybe there's a chance for a psychologist to work on that government project.
Government project? Oh, yes, that army thing.
Yes, sir. They're trying to develop robot pilots for the new fighter rockets so they'll be expendable.
Oh, yes. Something else designed to replace men.
Yes, sir, and you know it's a funny thing. The robots work just like human brains. They get overworked or overloaded at something and they have nervous breakdowns. Now, if I could only find out what drives those electronic brains crazy, why, I'd feel
Clinton,
that I was...
if you want to study a brain that's going crazy, never mind the robots. You can go to work on me.
What are you talking about, sir?
I don't know. I'm either crazy as a bedbug or a... Clinton, I wish you'd help me find out.
Are you serious, Professor?
I never was more serious in my life. I'm afraid I'm going out of my mind.
But why? What makes you think so?
This is what makes me think I'm crazy.
Those dice?
Clinton, do you know what the odds are against my rolling a 7?
Oh, about 5 or 6 to 1.
Watch. 7. Now, what are the odds against my rolling it again?
Twice in a row? Plenty. About 100 to 1, I'd say.
Watch.
Professor, you're hotter than a $2 pistol.
It's funny. That's what they said 8 years ago when I first discovered this.
Discovered what?
This force of the mind. I call it dynamo-psychism.
You mean you shove those dice around just by thinking about it?
People have always thought there could be a force of the mind. You know that. Fortunately or unfortunately, I've learned to control it.
Yeah? How did you happen to find out about this, Professor?
Well, it was about 10 years ago, back in 1948. I made the mistake of going to a psychologist's convention, and in order not to appear unsocial, I happened to find myself, for the first and only time in my life, in a dice game.
What happened?
I didn't have the faintest idea what was expected of me, and someone told me to roll 7s. So I did. 10 of them.
I'll bet you weren't asked back into that camp.
That night, in my room, I realized that it simply couldn't have been an accident, Clinton. I tried to reconstruct the exact scene, the position of my body, and finally, the thoughts in my mind. And that was what did it. I remembered what had been my train of thought. and I proceeded to roll 7s. Not 10 consecutive times, but 50.
Brother, there it is again. Professor, can you do anything else? I mean, besides shove dice around?
You see that inkwell on my desk?
Sure.
Watch it. Don't take your eyes off it. If nothing happens, say so, and I shall go quietly, even happily, to the nearest sanitarium.
Okay, Professor, shoot. Hey, why, it just blew up.
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to splash ink on your suit.
That's okay, Professor. What was that funny noise?
Oh, the dynamo psychic waves are a little like ultra-high frequency waves. Sometimes when I turn on the power, they create a kind of static.
Listen, Professor, how much power have you got? Could you blow up anything, well, big?
I could flatten the Great Wall of China.
Boy, you'll make the helio-oxygen bomb look sick.
That's what scares me, Clinton. The thought that maybe I could use this power to save the world. Clinton, you've got to help me.
Who, me? Professor, when it comes to international relations, I don't know from where. You'd better get in touch with the State Department.
State Department? Yes, they'd be the ones, wouldn't they? Well, you probably want to be getting home now. I'll see you to the door. I could use a breath of fresh air.
Okay, Professor. You better stop brooding about this. You get somebody else to do your worrying for you.
Yes, you're right. I have been brooding, wondering what to do. Just sitting and staring endlessly at that awful monstrosity across the way.
You mean the old bell tower?
Yes, I've gotten so I can't stand the sight of it anymore.
Professor, look, what? Well, there's nothing left but a pile of rubble.
Oh, my, I didn't really mean to do that. Well, you see, Clinton, it's got to the point where my lightest whim is more dangerous than a blockbuster.
Professor, you get in and write that letter to the State Department right now. You packed too much of a wallop. Professor Barnhouse mailed his letter, and things happened fast. A long arm of the Army reached out, and within 5 days, the two of us were deposited in an old mansion in Virginia, surrounded with a barbed wire fence and 20 guards, and labeled top secret. As soon as they'd seen a couple of small demonstrations, they set up a big test of dynamo psychism, and the professor was a very important guy. You could see him getting more unhappy every day.
General Barker, I've got to talk to you.
Just a minute, Professor. We're cleaning up the last details on Operation Brainwave. We'll roll at 1400 hours tomorrow.
At 1400 what?
2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. The robot-controlled fighter rockets will take off at exactly 1400 minus 10 and appear over the target at 1400. Watching from here over the video screen, you will then try to knock all 20 of them out of the sky. Think you can do it?
Of course I can do it.
Fine. And we've taken care of everything.
Everything except that you neglected to ask me if I wanted to do it. I don't. This whole thing strikes me as childish and insanely expensive.
We'll decide about that.
But what's the good of it? I wouldn't mind acting as a defense weapon if it were necessary. But I can make all wars and armaments unnecessary. I could give every nation what it needs. I could move mountains, build roads, dig irrigation canals. I have a technique which costs nothing and can do immense good. You're spending millions to prove that it can do immense damage. It doesn't make sense.
You know something, General? He's right.
Of course I'm right. I want you to send me and Clinton back to Wilton College. Right away.
That's quite impossible, Professor. This operation has gone too far to be called off now.
Yes, but...
Even if we wanted to call it off. If your dynamo psychism really works, you're apt to be the key to our entire defense setup.
But listen...
You'll have to excuse me now. Major Cuthrell and I have to double-check the confidential list of the observers on this end. Have you got it, Major?
Yes, General. It's right here. Alberts, Barker, Bernstein, Carter, Clinton, Cuthrell, Holbrook, Lawrence, Stein, Williams.
Check. I guess that includes everybody of importance.
What about me?
What? Oh, that's taken for granted, Professor.
Thanks.
1400 hours. Will you be ready?
I'll be ready. And now, if someone will wind the restricted clock and put the confidential cat out, I'm going to bed.
YDR to brainwave control. Observation plane to brainwave control. Come in, please.
That's McKinley in the observation plane. Cut me in. Hello, McKinley. Reading it clear on the speaker. Everything all right?
All okay, General. Takeoff uneventful. Fighter rockets now flying on course in perfect formation. Altitude 5,000 feet. Airspeed 865. Visibility unlimited. Are you tracking us?
We've got you on radar. Haven't picked you up on the video screen yet. What's your estimated time of arrival over the target?
ETA, 2 minutes.
Check.
This will be an interesting test. April 11th, 1950. Dimension X, the report on the Barnhouse effect. Thank you for tuning into Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. That's me, by the way. And the conclusion follows these messages from your favorite station. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Mike Lindell and MyPillow launching the MyPillow 2.0. Now, when Mike invented MyPillow, it had everything you could want in a pillow. Now, nearly 20 years later, he's discovered a new technology that makes MyPillow even better. Of course, the patented adjustable fill of the original MyPillow, but now with brand new fabric with a temperature-regulating thread, it's the softest, smoothest, and coolest pillow you'll ever own. Say goodbye to tossing and turning and flipping your pillow over in the middle of the night. And more great news on the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer with my promo code Wyatt. MyPillow 2.0 is 100% made in the USA, 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio podcast square to receive the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer. Use my promo code Wyatt or call 1-800-928-4715. I'm Wyatt Cox. Can I thank you for spending part of your Saturday with us here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox? Well, I did it anyway. You're listening to an episode of Dimension X, the report on the Barnhouse effect, as it was originally broadcast Saturday, April 22nd, 1950, in the newspapers of that Saturday 73 years ago today. These were some of the headlines. Secretary of State Dean Acheson said yesterday Soviet Russia is trying to stir up trouble in several critical areas of the world and said the situation is serious, but he added that he does not see East and West moving into war. John Hightower, writing for the Associated Press, said even as he spoke out against Russia at a news conference, the Capitol resounded with hot and angry words on the same subject. Demands were raised for strong action by the U.S. as a result of the Baltic plane shooting incident and Moscow's latest note regarding it. A U.S. Air Force C-54 plane carrying 35 persons crashed into a mountainside 60 miles south of Tokyo last night. All aboard were believed to have been killed. Attractive 45-year-old Mrs. Kathleen Mary Drury sentenced last night to 2 to 4 years in prison for the pistol shooting of her ex-husband's sweetheart. Mrs. Drury, who pleaded that she was driven insane by the double life of scholarly 45-year-old University of Georgia journalism dean John E. Drury, burst into tears at the verdict. Mrs. Drury's attorneys immediately filed a motion for a new trial, and the judge set July 8th for a hearing, releasing the dean's ex-wife on $5,000 bond. There will be no Miss America 1950. The board of directors of the Miss America pageant at Atlantic City announced they would dub the beauty winner in this September's contest Miss America of 1951. The current beauty, Jackie Merced of Phoenix, is Miss America 1949. Her title became outdated in 4 months, but she continued to be Miss America until a new winner will be crowned. Gracie Fields, Britain's usually gay comedienne, arrived in New York yesterday on the Queen Mary and commented sadly that the good old songs don't satisfy the public anymore. People are getting a bit dirty, she said. People want sophisticated songs. Also on the Queen Mary were the Marquess of Milford Haven and his American wife, the former Mrs. Romaine Simpson. Those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Saturday, April 22nd, 1950, on your radio Dimension X, which continues now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
Remember, McKinley, the observation plane is now to enter the target range. Veer off and circle at the 10-mile limit. Bring the rockets overhead by remote control.
Check. Observation signing off.
1 minute, 45 seconds to go, Professor Barnhouse. Are you in good shape?
I'm all right, General.
Good. You can all take our places in front of the video screen now. You sit here, Professor, in the center. Major Cuthrell, will you turn on the video screen?
Right, General. Nothing yet, just empty sky. Hold it. I hear him coming in.
There are 20 of them, Professor. You think you can knock them down at this altitude?
Distance has nothing to do with it.
I don't want anything to go wrong. You're sure you feel all right?
General, I know I can do it. If that's all that's worrying you, let's call the whole thing off and save $20 million.
There they are. They're coming in.
Get ready, Professor. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, wide open, Professor. Well, go ahead, Barnhouse. Knock them down.
I did.
Nonsense. All you've done is blank out the video screen. What went wrong? Did you give it everything you had?
I was wide open, General.
Then it didn't work. They're still flying. What's that?
It just took a few seconds to work. That's all.
Holy smoke, they're dropping like flies.
McKinley to brainwave control. What's happened to these rockets? They're going down like flame.
By heaven, it works. It really works. Cuthrell, get Washington on the line. Barnhouse, I want you to... Hey. Hey, where's Barnhouse?
I was right here.
Clinton, where's the professor?
Got me, General. We were all staring at the video. He must have walked out.
Get moving, everybody. Alert the guard. Search the house.
Yes, sir.
If anything happens to that man...
General Parker.
What is it, Corporal?
Corporal Gray guard at the main gate. Sir, Professor Barnhouse is gone.
Gone? Where?
He came tearing out of the gate at 40 miles an hour. Here's a note, sir. Threw it out of the car as he went by. I picked it up.
Let me see it, quick. What got into that man?
What does he say, General?
Gentlemen, as the first superweapon with a conscience, I'm removing myself from your national defense stockpile. Setting a new precedent in the behavior of ordnance, I have humane reasons for going off. Signed, Arthur Barnhouse.
Barnhouse was gone, and within 12 hours, the world was on a spree. The headlines were glorious or terrible, depending on what you think of the things the way they are.
Barnhouse flattens helio-bomb factory!
The dynamo psychic waves reached every corner of the world. In every country, every continent flashed the news of what was happening.
Hey, Barnhouse knocks out hidden atomic stockpile in Asia!
There was a new kind of war, the war of tattletales. Secret agents of every country hunted for the hidden armaments of their enemies, yelled about them in the newspapers, and immediately there'd be that warning burst of Barnhouse static, followed by...
Radio-controlled fleet blown up on secret maneuver!
The professor was out to make peace or bust, and nothing like him ever was.
Wow, what a weapon. April 22nd, 1950, Dimension X. The conclusion follows these messages on this Saturday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. On Sunday's Classic Radio Theater, we're going to go back 88 years, April 23rd, 1935, the West Coast program Calling All Cars and the wholesale murder case. 3 young men steal a car in San Francisco, and they've shot and killed 3 men. More on that tomorrow at this time. But right now, the conclusion of the Saturday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, Dimension X, 73 years ago, broadcast at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, April 22nd, 1950, the report on the Barnhouse Effect.
Look, Major Cuthrell, I told the FBI and the Army everything I know weeks ago. I've answered questions till I'm blue in the face.
I didn't come here to ask questions, Clinton. I came to ask for your help.
My help?
That's right. Find Barnhouse.
What if I don't want to?
If you're his friend, I think you'd better.
Why pick on me? You've got the FBI, the police, and Army intelligence. Why can't you find him yourselves?
We're trying. But you know the man well. You could spot him where we wouldn't. And you're the only one who can.
Maybe. But why should I? Wherever he is, I think he's doing fine. He's making war impossible, and I like it.
So do I.
Yes? He's putting you out of a job.
That's all right with me. I'll retire to a truck farm with pleasure.
Well, then?
Look, Clinton, we aren't the only ones in this race. Every country in the world has its best agents out hunting for Barnhouse. Nobody can beat that kind of a manhunt.
He seems to be doing all right so far.
Sure, but how long do you think he can keep it up? A week? A month? Sooner or later, he'll be spotted. And if the wrong people find him, then we're done for. You know what kind of weapon this is. Whoever controls the Barnhouse effect can control the world.
Well, all right. Suppose they do find him. He'd never give the secret away.
Never give it away? Are you out of your mind? You think these fellas are playing for marbles?
Well, no, but...
Read the papers, Clinton. Don't you know what's going on in the rest of the world?
Yes,
They'll get the secret out of Barnhouse, all right. What happens to him in the process won't be very pretty.
Well, he must realize that then. He'll never let himself be taken alive.
He may not have the choice. And if he doesn't, God help us all.
All right. All right, I'm in.
Good. Now, do you know anything that you haven't told us? Anything that might give us a lead?
Only this. It was addressed to me. I found it here on his desk the morning after he escaped.
You mean he came back here?
Yes. I guess he needed to pick up some personal effects. Anyway, the files were open, and he left this note on a scrap of paper.
Anything to do with the Barnhouse effect?
Read it yourself. It's Greek to me. Just these few lines scrawled on a piece of paper, and the last one breaks off right in the middle of the sentence.
This stuff doesn't make any sense at all. You know, from the looks of this, I'm beginning to wonder if the professor isn't going off his rocker.
I thought of that, too.
All the more reason why we've got to get to him quick. He may be helpless, and the whole world's on his track. Come on, Clinton. We haven't much time.
You say you do recognize this photograph, Mrs. Reardon?
I tell you, it looks like Mr. Balfour's. He had a second-floor front room for quite a while, but he left, I should say, about a week ago. Say, is he wanted for something?
Yes, if he's the man I think he is.
Well, now, I'd say you're looking for the wrong fella. That Mr. Balfour, he couldn't be a criminal. Why, he wouldn't even harm a fly. He spent all his time in his room, just thinking.
Oh, brother, it's hot. What a way to spend an August afternoon, huh, Major? Give my eye teeth to be at Jones Beach.
So would I, Corporal. We've got work to do here.
Look, sir, we've been cruising around these radio detection cars for a week. Not a sign of Barnhouse static. The professor must have run out of things to work on.
Well, we'll give him a little more time. Switch to shortwave. See if there's anything special coming through.
Yes.
Try the 9-meter band.
This is Radio Miranda.
Let's hear that.
Our American enemies who have hidden behind the unjust and diabolical persecution by Professor Arthur Barnhouse will tyrannize us no more.
I wonder if the professor's on
Today,
this.
our glorious leader takes up his residence in a shelter, shielded with lead against all dynamo-psychic rays. With his protection designed by our brilliant scientists to be absolutely impregnable against the Barnhouse effect, he will once again lead us on the path of our glorious death.
Quick, triangulate it and get me a fix.
I've got it. Let me check this chart.
Quick, man.
3.9, 1.7. Oh, my aching back.
What is it?
We haven't got a prayer of finding him, Major. He'd have to be picked out of 2 million people.
Where is Barnhouse?
Right where I was wishing I was. Right smack in the middle of Jones Beach. Sorry, gents, we're full. No more rooms tonight.
We don't want a room. Do you recognize this picture?
Who wants to know?
Uncle wants to know.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Let me see it. Yeah, it looks a lot like room 417.
About 5'8", thin, sandy hair, glasses, little scar right across the bridge of his nose.
Yeah, that's 417, all right.
You mean he's here now?
No, not anymore. He checked out 2 days ago, but he couldn't have gone far.
What makes you say that?
Oh, he looked sick as a dog. Couldn't hardly carry his own bag out.
Uh-oh.
Like I said to the other fellas, I said he looked like he was on his way to the morgue.
What other fellas?
Eh? Oh, the ones this morning. You're the second pair that's been asking for him.
Here we are, Ward 15. This way, gentlemen.
You're sure he's here, nurse?
Oh, yes.
Thank heaven we're in time.
Well, I wasn't on duty when he came in, but one of the other girls told me he collapsed in the street. The ambulance brought him in.
Poor guy, he must have really had it rough.
Oh, here you are. Bed number 78. This is your man.
Wait a minute.
This isn't Barnhouse.
But I was perfectly sure. Oh, wait, let me check his chart. Dismissed 8 p.m.
Only an hour ago.
Oh, dear, now I remember.
Remember what? If he was sick, why did you let him go?
Well, 2 of his friends came and took him away. They didn't want him in the charity ward. They said they'd make sure that he was taken care of.
Every time I walk into this study, I keep hoping somehow I'll wake up out of a bad dream and find the professor just sitting here. Major, is there anything we haven't covered?
Nothing. The police, the FBI, the air patrols, the docks, the railroad stations, everything. Not even a flea could get through this dragnet. I hope.
Then I guess we sit.
We sit. Maybe something will come in. Do you have to roll those dice?
I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking.
An hour. That's what's driving me crazy. 1 hour sooner and he'd have been in our hands, not theirs.
I know. Well, maybe he's still all right.
How can he be all right? He's in the hands of a foreign power.
We don't know that for sure. The professor was a likable little guy. He couldn't have lasted this long if he hadn't found some friends. Maybe they came and took him away.
Well, I said... Grab that.
Hello? Yes?
Clinton, is that you?
Professor Barnhouse.
Clinton, they've got me.
Who's got you? Where are you, Professor?
I don't know. They said something about taking me to an airport.
An airport? Which one?
Listen, Clinton, I've got to tell you. The inkwell.
What are you talking about?
Remember the inkwell?
Professor. Professor Barnhouse. Operator.
Your call, please.
Operator, that caller just came in here. Can you trace it?
I'm sorry, sir, but I'm afraid it's too late. Your party has been disconnected.
Where are we headed? He didn't say which airport.
Just a hunch. The commercial airfields are all covered. But there's a little private field out here, I remember. Hasn't been used in years.
Better be the one.
They didn't have too much of a start on us. Maybe we'll make it in time. Step on it, Corporal.
Wide open, Major.
How'd he sound? Did he say who had him?
No, all he got out was the airport and something about an Major, Mr. Clinton, there's a tail light up ahead. Must be another car going like the devil.
You're right, I see it. They're turning into the airfield. Come on, faster.
Hold everything. Look up ahead. They're switching the floodlights on at the field.
There's the plane down at the other end, all warmed up and ready to go.
We'll never make it on the road. Hang on, I'm going through the fence, right?
Well, what's the matter? Get going.
Sorry, sir. Must have cracked the axle.
They're taking off. Get out the submachine gun.
You can't. Barnhouse is in that plane. You'll kill him.
We've got to take that chance.
That plane's headed straight for us. Hit the dirt.
Get that gun working, Corporal. Aim for the propeller.
Couldn't get him, Major.
Well, there goes the old ball game.
I'll get through to air patrol, sir. Maybe they can intercept the plane.
Not a chance. By the time the fighters got off the ground, the plane would be out of range. No, we've lost, Barnhouse. Nothing can save us now. Hey, what?
What hit me? Clinton, are you all right? Yeah, sure. The plane. It's gone.
I know. Barnhouse blew it right out of the sky. He wouldn't let himself be taken alive.
Boy, he really did it the hard way. Poor guy. He shouldn't have had to be a hero. All he ever wanted was peace.
Peace? What's that? Now the arms race will start all over again. And with Barnhouse gone, what's left to stop it?
So they brought me back here to the professor's old study to dictate this report. I'm sitting here at his desk, and it's just the way he left me. Papers all over, even his old pair of dice. Arthur Barnhouse is dead. That's going to be good news for some people when they find out. The saber rattlers of the world will be busy as of tomorrow morning, getting ready to whoop up another war. But I'm afraid they're in for a little surprise. It's 3 a.m. now. And before morning comes, I intend to vanish, disappear completely. That's the last that anybody will ever see or hear of me directly. That's why I want to tell you now. I've been looking at the new inkwell here on the desk. The professor's last words were something about an inkwell. And in it I found a little scrap of paper, just a few words, but they complete the note I showed the Major. The note that didn't make any sense. The whole thing makes sense now. Professor Barnhouse may be dead, but you haven't heard the last of the Barnhouse effect. Not yet. I've been experimenting while I've been talking to you, and now the time has come for me to say goodbye. You see, I've just rolled my 50th consecutive 7.
You have just heard Report on the Barnhouse Effect by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. An adventure in time, space, and the unknown. Dimension
Next week, the strange story of the interspace rocket Star Cloud, which vanished mysteriously behind the Great Galactic Barrier in the year 1986. What happened to it and to its crew? We'll tell you next week.
Tonight's story, Report on the Barnhouse Effect, was adapted for radio by Clarice A. Ross. Featured in the cast were Bill Quinn as Clinton, Ed Jerome as Professor Barnhouse, and Carl Weber as Major Cutthroat. Your host was Norman Rose. Music, Albert Berman. Engineer, Bill Chambers. Dimension X is produced by Van Woodward and directed by Edward King.
April 22nd, 1950, Dimension X on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream. Stream our shows on demand. See some of the places where our shows are available by a podcast. Learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can find our social media links, and if you'd like to help support this program, you can buy me a coffee. That Buy Me a Coffee money helps us acquire additional classic radio collections and maintain our distribution channels. All of that at classicradio.stream, and we thank you for your support. And please thank this radio station, support their advertisers, and tell all your friends the greatest radio shows of all time are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.